Right, so this is video 2 of 3, where I'm looking at the muddiest points that came out during our leases contact session. And this one is going to have a look at rentals very quickly, and then the lease premium in the hands of both the lessee and the lessor. Right, so I am again assuming you've got the question open next to you. So what I thought I'd do is I'd like to show you, the effect on the taxable income for the lessee and the lessor, but I'm going to show them to you next to each other. So let's draw a line down the middle, right? And on this side, I'll be looking at the lessee, which is Kaya, and on this side, I'll be looking at the lessor. And I want to determine the effect on their taxable income. So if I determine effect on the taxable income, I always have a line that I draw, a column that I draw on the right-hand side of the page, because this is going to show me the effect on my taxable income. So the first item, very simply, is the rental payment of 20,000 Rand per month. Now, please remember, Kaya is the lessee, and the lessee, because he's paying for the right of use of an asset, will want to claim a deduction for this. Can he claim a deduction? Yes, he can. What section gives him that deduction? Section 11A, the general deduction formula. So when I calculate the taxable income of Kaya, when I'm busy with a framework calculation, I will write lease payment, right? And I don't have a lot of space and I'm writing big, so just, that you'll probably fit this into one line. The deduction is in terms of section 11A, or the general deduction formula. Now, he pays 20,000 Rand a month. How long was this lease agreement in effect for? If we assume that it's not a new trade, etc., I know that from the 1st of April 2016 until the 28th of Feb 2017 is 11 months, which means Kaya will deduct an amount of 220,000 Rand. Right, that's what Kaya can do. From John's perspective, that 20,000 Rand a month he receives, right? I mean, he's the owner of the asset, he gets this lease amount. So John is not going to have a deduction, he's going to have a gross income inclusion. So I will write in John's calculation, this is also the lease payment, but this is gross income, right? And what is received by or accrued to John? Exactly the same in this scenario, or in this case, that happens or the calculation basically looks the same, but John won't be able to get a deduction for this. John is going to be taxed on that 220,000 Rand. Right, let's move on to the lease premium. Okay, so what about the lease premium? Now, a lease premium is consideration that our lessee pays to our lessor in addition to your normal rental amounts. And whether you regard this amount as capital in nature or not, a lease premium, by virtue of our special inclusion paragraphs in gross income, will be gross income for the lessor. Because, think about it. Kaya pays 96,000 Rand to John to basically get this lease agreement. John gets 96,000 Rand, and he will need to be taxed on it. So, from John's perspective, what we will do, we will say lease premium, right? Now, remember, this is John's taxable income calculation. So John gets a lease premium. How much does he get? He gets 96,000 Rand. We don't have to do anything with months, etc., because the total amount received by or accrued to during the year of assessment, and in this case, irrespective of whether you think it's capital in nature or not, will be included in John's gross income. So there's my reason. The lease premium is gross income for John. Now, please note that for leases, you do not have to know the section numbers. You have to know the section numbers for our general capital allowances like 12C, 11E, 13.1, 13 Quin, 13.6, but you don't need to know the section numbers for leases. Make sure you know what the reasons are. Okay, so we've dealt with John, the lessor. Let's have a look at Kaya, the lessee. Now, from Kaya's perspective, he paid 96,000 Rand in the form of a lease premium. So, again, in his taxable income, we also need to figure out what to do with this lease premium. Now, if I want to know whether something is deductible, I run to section 11A. If you go through the requirements, you might fall out because a lease premium could be considered to be capital in nature. Now, whether or not it complies with the general deduction formula or not, we do have a special deduction available for a lease premium that's paid by a lessee, and this one is in terms of section 11F. Now remember, again, you do not need to know this section number, you just need to know that a lessee is entitled to claim an allowance on any lease premiums that they pay. Now, this lease premium is calculated according to a specific rule, and this calculation you need to know. What we say is, what is the amount of the lease premium? 96,000 Rand. We divide this by the number of years of the lease agreement, which is 20 years. Remember that if the lease agreement was longer than 25 years, we would limit this amount to 25 years. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we have to multiply it or apportion it for the number of months that this lease agreement was used for trade purposes and the production of income. Now, usually, in most cases, the lease premium follows the lease payment. The lease payment, the rental payment, in Kaya's hands, we deducted for 11 months because there's an argument that it's not a new trade. So the lease premium we'll calculate on the same basis. So we'll say 11 over 12, and that then is going to give me a deduction of 4,400 Rand. Now I quickly want to show you what the effect will be for 2018. The one above here is our 2017 calculation, but let's have a look what's going to happen in 2018 for both John and Kaya in respect of this lease premium. If we look at John first, please note there's nothing that's going to be included for John in 2018. Why? Because the gross income definition says you are taxed on the earlier of receipt or accrual. When did he receive this amount? In 2017. So in 2018, we're not going to do anything with this lease premium in John's hands. However, for Kaya, who's not entitled to deduct the full 96,000 Rand in 2017, I mean, he's writing it off over the lease term of this agreement, we are going to have a deduction in 2018. So for 2018, for Kaya, we'll say lease premium, right? Again, you don't have to know the section number. You have to know that there's a deduction. What does this calculation look like? 96,000 Rand divided by 20 years. And if all goes well, we won't need to make any apportionment because in 2018, that lease contract will run for the full year of assessment, which means that in 2018, Kaya will get a deduction of 4,800 Rand. So if you have a careful look over here, you'll see that our lessor, in the year that the lease agreement comes into effect, is taxed immediately on the lease premium, but the lessee can only deduct it over the life of the lease term. So for our lessee, for the next 20 years, in his taxable income calculation, we will calculate a lease premium deduction. That concludes lease rentals and lease premiums. The next and last video, we'll have a look at the leasehold improvements.